Welcome to our June 7th, which is hard to imagine, it's already June, 2022 BOCC meeting. If you'd all please rise. We will do the invocation this morning with Pastor Blaine Albright and follow that by the Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's pray together. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to come to you in prayer. Thank you for hearing our prayers. As your word says that your ears are attentive to the righteous. So we recognize you as the supreme authority, but we also recognize that you have established earthly leadership. And so we thank you and we pray for our president. We pray for our senators and our congressional representatives, our governor, our military, our law enforcement, these commissioners, and all those that you've placed in authority in our lives. Your word tells us that if we need wisdom, that we can ask you for it, and that's a prayer that you're ready to say yes to. And so we ask you for great wisdom for these leaders and for citizens of Martin County today. We want to be a county that prospers and shines bright, serving and caring for all people, so that through kindness, people can experience your love. God, let our conversations be covered with grace, seeking not just to be heard, but to listen. And so I pray that you lead us today and every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This morning we will have our public comment at around 9:05 as soon as we get through the adoption. Sorry. This morning we will have our 9:05 public preset or thereabouts as we get through the adoption of the agenda items. We have an additional item this morning, consent item number 5. Which is request approval of the county deed conveying 25% of interest in the county-owned parcel located within the Palomar Water Control District, PMWCD, to satisfy legal requirements to serve on the board of directors. We also have that item being pulled this morning by Commissioner Hurd. And with that, we need a motion for approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I will move approval of the agenda with consent pull, additional item, consent number 5, and the pull, consent 5.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, first public speaker we have this morning will be, let's see, we have public hearing item 3, David Hafner.
Prior to Mr. Hafner coming up, I would like to say that we are currently in what we refer to as an election season. We have county commissioners that are in active campaign for re-election. Your public comment is to address the Board of County Commissioners as a whole. We do not allow partisan politicking, which is defined as advocating the election or defeat of a particular candidate. Use of words, dates, signs, props, and/or wearing apparel or nameplate that convey a message or express advocacy for a person or group of persons is also not allowed. Thank you for your cooperation. You'll have your 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm David Hafner, Martin County Farm Bureau. Unfortunately, I can't stay for the agenda or the discussion item later today about the backyard chickens, but I just wanted to come forward and give our support, both mine personally and from the Farm Bureau. What I'm hoping for today is that we can leave with the direction to move forward with an educational component, maybe do some workshops to make sure everyone is comfortable with this moving forward. I give myself freely to help put on workshops, both myself, Farm Bureau. I know the Extension Office also has offered their support in doing this as well. So please, if we can be of assistance at all in this moving forward, we'd love to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Good morning. Mr. Pine, you're next. Following Mr. Pine is Robin Cartwright.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tom Pine. I've been a resident of Martin County for nearly 50 years. At the May 3rd, 2020 Martin County Commission meeting, the chairman of this board implied that in 1998, the chairperson, Commissioner Meltzer, and I quote, her cronies were responsible for the extension of runway 1230. In fact, it was the Jensen Beach Commissioner's predecessor, Commissioner Wilcox, who retired from the New York, New Jersey Port Authority Governing Board, which oversees some of the busiest airports in the country. So he knew how to find the right dirtbag with the right license to get the job done, no matter what it took. September 9th, 1997, hidden in the consent agenda, the county slush fund, the Board of County Commissioners approved the grant from the FAA FDOT that did not show or authorize runway extension, but this is exactly what was used for. There was no public discussion and once again hidden from the public. This is when runway 1230 was in fact extended 460 feet, even though airport director denied it the runway extension. This all happened while my neighborhood was never notified of any work on this airport grounds. In 1998, it is true Martin County Commissioner did vote 5-0 to approve the extension of runway 1230. Outdated maps that did not show 18th Street, 16th Court, 16th Street, Apache Avenue, Arapahoe Avenue were used to con the commissioners that weren't in on the scheme. Sometime later, Commissioner Getting and Commissioner Meltzer both apologized in the Stewart News for their votes, stating they felt deceived by senior staff with information filled with half-truths. I would like to thank past president of WAN and the current leader of the citizens group, Dave Shore, for all his work on this issue. I would also like to thank Carl Thomas for stepping up financially to help us fight our government. Without his help, we might still be living there. And yes, Chairman, you and your cronies will be remembered for the destruction of the Martin County difference when this scheme to develop what Martin County is approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cartwright?
Almar was moved to the agenda. I'd like to wait for that.
Sure. That'll come up next, actually, when we do our consent poll. Anybody else from the public? That's the last public speaker form I have that wasn't on a specific item. Ma'am, if you'd like to come up. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Amber D'Angelo. This is Gemma D'Angelo. So I'm just here to speak on the backyard chicken item, of course. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the commissioners and the staff for all the work that you've done with considering this and the education that the research that you're doing and everything. I was talking to somebody the other day and they asked me, they said, why do you specifically want to have backyard chickens? And I was like, oh, like me specifically. I could name a whole bunch of benefits, but for me, what makes me want to have them for my family would be, I grew up with the type of childhood that a lot of people in the generation before me talk about, like running around outside, climbing trees and, smell of fresh cut grass and, just like that wholesome feeling. And I think that, in this day and age, like our kids are, the world's going to try at them and to get into their minds, and there's going to be plenty of that. But I'm really excited and hopeful for the memories that I'll get to make with my daughter and my son, and just doing stuff together outside in our community and things like that. So, as far as like any like opposing opinions that might come up, y'all have gotten an email from me with our research that we've done, and I hope that can address a lot of the opposing positions on like their concerns and everything. But I would really just hone in on the pilot program idea, because I don't want anybody to feel like it's an all or nothing for them on either side. And the pilot program is one way that we can really find like a compromise. And I would love to just have like an ordinance like signed in, and be like, okay, we got chickens for good. But I want everybody to be as happy as possible, and for people to really kind of keep an open mind and see that it would be a really good thing for our community to have, that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Polly, I had you in another pile. Do you want to speak at public, or did you have an item that you want to speak on?
I have to be out of here.
Come on up. I'm sorry. I had you in a different pile, and I just went back through them again, and I noticed you were yes for public, so I apologize. Good morning.
Polly Campenny, City of Stuart. Good morning, Commissioners and staff. I have the privilege of sitting on your Animal Care and Control Oversight Board, and I'm here today to encourage your unanimous support of the change to Martin County's animal ordinance. That's going to come before you later today. There are currently 2 stores operating here that sell puppies. The Oversight Board has 2 veterinaries who sit on the board, and at the last meeting, they reported that puppies sold from these establishments have required veterinary care, in some cases requiring euthanasia. Purchasers have been given documentation of breed authenticity that is incorrect, and the physical condition of the stores was inconsistent with the humane care of animals. I've been told that there are some who are arguing that we do not want to interfere with private enterprise here in Martin County, and therefore they oppose this change. Note that the revised ordinance gives existing store operators 1 year to reimagine their business models, and still allows them the ability to sell animals during that period. It seems like ample time to revise their business planning since they have both been open for less than a year. Martin County is one of a small minority of Florida counties that has not already adopted such a ban on the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits in retail stores. We all know the story behind the stores that sell puppies and the unsavory breeding practices that are used to produce those puppies. I'm sure you agree that this line of business is not one that should exist in our county. Please vote to approve the ordinance today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public on general public that would like to speak at this time? Okay, we'll close public. We'll come to Commissioner comments. Commissioner Jenkins, do you have anything this morning?
I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Commissioner Campy?
Thank you. Just 2 quick things, Mr. Chairman. One, yesterday was the 78th anniversary of D-Day, and other than a Facebook post here or there, I don't think, look, our generation, we understand and get it, but, I think that what men and women did on D-Day to protect the rest of us, we'd be up here probably speaking German. And I think that those solemn holidays, anniversaries, young people need to hear about them, know about them, because you know what they say, if you forget history, it will repeat itself. And then I also just wanted to mention that yesterday, I know that over the weekend, everyone was prepared and concerned for the terrible weather that we were going to have, but last night, I don't know about everywhere in the county, but in Palm City, it might as well have been a hurricane, because I know that some people were concerned, including myself, when I was coming back from an event in Stuart at about 10 o'clock coming over the Veterans Memorial Bridge. I'd say half the flags were gone. The other half were hanging on by a thread, and our staff was out there first thing this morning. Jim Gordon's here. I texted him last night in the middle of the night. I said, I apologize for texting you, but I didn't want anybody to wake up and see those flags, in such disarray. So we did take care of that. I mean, we didn't have power for a couple of hours where I live, which we always had power even during the hurricanes. So it was, and there are plenty of trees uprooted and vegetation all over the place. So whatever came through last night was very severe, and I just didn't want to say, we're remembering the anniversary of D-Day and then have people drive over the bridge this morning and think like shame on us. So that was handled first thing this morning. Thank you.
Commissioner Hurd?
I'm set.
Ms. Krista? Ms. Woods? Jeff Whitman, please. if you'd like, you want to speak at public? Please come on up. And again, just one more time, if anybody wants to speak or wanted to speak at public, please come up because now's the time. Was the time. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Whitman, Hope Sound. I have some questions for the commission. The first one is regarding the gopher tortoises at the airport. Did staff, in their decision to remove and relocate the gopher tortoises from airport property at a cost of $110,000, follow the 1973 Endangered Species Act? The Endangered Species Act provides for the designation of critical habitat and prohibits the destruction of that habitat. Did staff instruct ecological associates to look for other threatened and endangered species on the site? This is coastal scrub. The Martin County Comprehensive Growth Management Plan states that coastal scrub shall be preserved. Currently, 13 native Florida scrub plants are listed and protected as federally endangered or threatened, while 22 are listed by the state. Another question is, does the airport have a preserve area management plan? And if it doesn't, why not? Just wondering. The $110,000 removal and relocation fee could have been used to build a fence and create a gopher tortoise preserve on the adjacent scrub habitat. The FWC representative told residents that it is very, very likely that something could have been worked out to allow the gopher tortoises to remain in Martin County, maybe like Halpatioke Park. Developers routinely obtain exemptions to the rules when they ask for waivers. Did Martin County staff try to get an exemption? With all the development going on in Florida, gopher tortoise laws need to be strengthened. As it is now, it is easier for developers to bury the gopher tortoises and just pay the fine. I'm just speaking for the gopher tortoises because the gopher tortoises can't speak for themselves. And thank you very much for everything you do.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Anybody else from the public this morning that we might have missed? Okay. We'll come back to consent item number 5, request approval of the county deed conveying 25% of the interest in the county-owned parcel located within Palomar. Commissioner Hurd, you pulled this?
Yeah, I just wanted a clearer explanation of what we are attempting to do in this item. So if staff can just present what our plan is, what our goals are, what our expectations are.
Of course. This is a request for approval of a county deed conveying a 25% interest in a parcel of property located within the Palomar Water Control District to George Stokas to satisfy the legal requirements to serve on the Palomar Water Control Board of Supervisors. As Commissioner Hurd knows, for years and years, the South Florida Water Management District, an employee of the district, had, using a deed virtually identical to this, held an undivided 25% interest with property within the Palomar Water Control District so that that individual could be eligible to be elected as to the Board of Supervisors of the Palomar Water Control District. Under the statute governing the district, there is one position for a county commissioner from Palm Beach County, one from Martin County, and then there are 3 at-large positions that are elected by the landowners within the district. In order to be eligible to run, you have to be a person, not a corporation, not a county. It has to be a person. So that is the mechanism by conveying the property, using a specialized county deed to a county employee, we would be able to have someone stand for election to the Board of Supervisors. The annual meeting of the Board of Supervisors is June 27th. And so the idea is that because South Florida Water Management District no longer has a designated employee and would be ineligible to vote at the landowner meeting, staff believes that representation on the Palomar Water Control District as a landowner is essential. I think this board has heard a myriad of public comment about the changes that have occurred in the Palomar Water Control District, and this is staff's way of attempting to address that those issues, and also to provide a voice for Martin County residents as a landowner, as a very large landowner, by the way. The county has bought thousands of parcels, as well as Palm Beach County owns parcels, as well as the district, and we feel we need to have our voice heard, and this is the mechanism legally to do. There were a couple of Scrivener's errors in the initial deed. I've passed that out, which indicates Mr. Stokas is a married man, and I've also changed to indicate that the Monterey address is his mailing address. But understand, the deed is very clear. Mr. Stokas is only holding this deed to the land. He has to be on the Board of Supervisors. It's to allow him to represent the interests of Martin County as a landowner, and should he not be a Martin County employee, he not be a member of the Board of Supervisors, the deed automatically reverts back to Martin County. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. Palomar has long, for decades, has been a priority for Martin County to acquire, to protect, and preserve. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that we still stand behind that. We're doing everything that we can in order to protect our interests in Palomar, which are considerable. It's one of the finest quality wetland habitats in South Florida. So we are just attempting to preserve that. And with that, I'll move staff's recommendation for approval.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Cartwright, did you want to still speak on this item? Did you want to speak on this item still? Please, come forward. Anybody else wish to speak on this Palomar item, which was pulled from consent by Commissioner Hurd? Good morning.
Morning. There was a cute little kiddo chatting with me, and that took priority. Sorry.
It does.
Yeah.
Agree.
Good morning, Commissioners. I appreciate you pulling this item from the consent agenda. There's much wrong with the way that this commission, as well as the Stuart City Commission, pushes through items on the consent agenda rather than discusses them in the open. While it's not a violation of sunshine laws, it's questionably ethical. Ethical. There are items that affect us as taxpayers that you would rather push through and discuss with your constituents, so I do appreciate you pulling this for discussion. The lack of effort to protect the environment and keep the gopher tortoises, as just mentioned in Martin County, instead of moving them at taxpayers' expense arbitrarily under the cloak of consent agenda darkness. It's always stated that there will at least be a presentation, but no presentation is ever made. Another example of questionable effort is, while it's presented as an agenda item, the lack of transparency related to the necessary but never provided by the county workshop specific to the Rural Lifestyle Amendment that was being pushed through. And you wonder why we are so frustrated, concerned, and mad about what's happening here. I appreciate you pulling the Palomar from the consent agenda to assign a parcel in Palomar to Assistant County Administrator George Stokas with a deed prepared by the county. As I understand it, some of the land acquired by the county was acquired from absentee landowners, including those who didn't pay taxes as a result of a tax sale for the abandoned properties. Are those lands deeded to conservation? Also, as I understand it, there is quite a bit of unpermitted or not fully permitted building happening in Palomar. What is the county doing to step up enforcement of effort on those lands? Again, as I understand it, there is building happening that is not permitted. And if this is the case, is the county working actively to address this as quickly and as assuredly as they are trying to create a seat on the Palomar board? Are my tax dollars being used to grant land to this individual? And will my tax dollars gift this land to him in perpetuity? If so, why am I not being asked to be the owner of this land? So what's the county to do? I vaguely understand your goal, and though how you're pursuing it, I'm not completely sure of. Is it actually the ability to actively participate in the conservation of the land, and what is the actual intention of this seat? On a related tangent, I know that the system to get ranked on the state of Florida's Forever Land Acquisition list is convoluted and muddy. And even if environmental or conservation groups raise money to participate in this effort, the governor can veto the appropriation, much like he did yesterday. Yesterday, he vetoed $3 million worth of appropriation intended to save 14 undeveloped acres in Pinellas County. Now it's up to individuals to fundraise to buy that land from the developer. One man should not have the power to decide what's environmentally important or needed, which leads me to this conclusion. One commission should not allow one man to be given a piece of land that is owned by taxpayers for a seat on a commission that will then be his in perpetuity.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to comment on this item? Hearing none, back to the board. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, I kind of rushed through that item or to get to that item, and I apologize, so we will come back to our proclamations. The first proclamation this morning is the United Way of Martin County's 50th anniversary.
Thank you, Commissioner. The United Way of Martin County was founded in 1972 as a way for local businesses, government entities, community organizations, and committed individuals to work together to meet our community's needs. United Way of Martin County celebrates June 2022 as Live United Month, and also its 50th anniversary, making 5 decades of improving lives in our community. The board recognizes the 50th anniversary of United Way of Martin County and encourages everyone to celebrate their pioneering work to build a thriving community by uniting people, ideas, and resources. Carol, would you like to come up?
Good morning.
See you.
I have a whole posse with me. You know I like to speak, but I'm actually going to turn it over to our board chair, if you would mind. Carrie Anderson, sorry.
She's nervous about speaking in public.
Yeah, she is.
It's your first time.
Yeah. It is, it
It's
is.
really easy. Just kind of lean into the
Just lean in.
microphone and talk, and don't worry about everybody in the background.
All right, got it. Well, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Ms. Krista and Ms. Woods. My name for the record is Carrie Anderson, and I have the great, tremendous privilege of serving as the board chair for the United Way as we celebrate 50 years of serving here in our beloved Martin County. The United Fund, as it was called at the time, held its first meeting on June 22nd of 1972 in the Martin Memorial Hospital conference room to announce the first substantial contribution to the organization, and it was a donation of $250. The Martin County Board of County Commissioners, along with Florida Power and Light, the City of Stuart, and the Martin County Board were among the first organizations to make payroll deductions available for contributions to the United Fund that year. Our first annual campaign in support of the community raised $47,000 to support 11 nonprofit organizations. But since then, the United Way has grown to become an integral part of our community, and that's thanks to the amazing support of our generous donors, volunteers, workplaces, and community partners. As you know, 50 years is epic, and particularly in a world where change is happening by the hour. But as your Martin County United Way, we are committed to seeing everyone in our community succeed. Last year, our United Way invested nearly $2 million to boost Martin County's safety net, including 42 local programs to improve education, health, financial stability, and to our most vulnerable people among us. But despite much progress, needs still exist. Deep-rooted challenges are ever present, and new problems, such as those caused by the global pandemic, are arising without warning. But as always, your Martin County United Way is here to help our neighbors, to move them forward, supporting them by offering a hand up for a brighter tomorrow. We are excited to celebrate 50 years as our 50th year anniversary this year. And we hope that you will stand with us throughout this year through volunteering opportunities and also for giving to our annual campaign. I close by saying, Commissioners, thank you so much for your support and for allowing us to serve our piece of paradise as Martin County, as the United Way of Martin County. Thank you.
Man, oh man, she's good at that.
Carol? Can we get Taryn too? since she
Yes,
was on our
Taryn,
board
of
for a
course.
number of
There
years?
she is. Come on.
Bringing me down here, Taryn, get up here.
Yeah, that's right. You can
thank me for getting me down. I know, thank you.
She's going the well.
Oh, are we all in? Yes, are we in? Oh, yes, and I'm gonna do this. There you go. Look at us all. Oh, what would we do without them? Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, our next one is to present a proclamation declaring National Garden Week in Martin County, Florida. Each year, during the first full week of June, garden clubs across the country celebrate National Garden Week with activities to promote the importance of gardening through encouraging the planting of seeds in gardens and enjoying the fruits, vegetables, and the flowers produced. During Garden Week, the Garden Club of Stuart tends community gardens throughout our community and places beautiful floral designs created by their members in each of Martin County's libraries to display the beauty of gardening. The board recognizes June 5 through 11 as National Garden Week in Martin County and acknowledges the importance of gardening and the numerous contributions of garden clubs such as the Garden Club of Stuart, the Jensen Beach Garden Club, and the Piper's Landing Garden Club. Rosita Aristoff, would you like to come up?
This is for you. Good morning. The Garden Club of Stuart is among as many as 5,000 garden clubs across America, affiliated with the National Garden Clubs, which are currently celebrating National Garden Week. It is an opportunity for us to encourage pride in our communities and to work with other like-minded groups involved in the areas of Florida-friendly plantings, native plantings, floral design, and in generally sharing knowledge about gardening. One of our projects for this particular week has traditionally been to place floral arrangements at several of Martin County's public libraries. So on behalf of the Garden Club of Stuart, I thank the Commission for recognizing with this proclamation our efforts to beautify the community. I will now leave you with this thought. Anyone who has time for drama is simply not gardening enough. Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you so much.
That's a nice idea. Brightens up the whole place. You have a real touch, Doug. You have a real touch. I'm gonna want a fifth of that plant.
Sorry?
I'm going to want a fifth of that plant.
You can.
The beauty of the Croton is that it can be easily subdivided and propagated. It was a marvelous choice. We can each have a fifth
We can all get a
and
fifth.
plant them.
Well, I just had to transplant about 30 of them, and 2 of them really didn't like it, so hopefully they're going to come back and make it, but they were overly stressed in my moving, and I'm sorry that I didn't do such a good job of doing that. Okay. First item on the agenda this morning is public hearing, item 1, to request board approval for Human Services Program to proceed with a Community Development Block Grant, CDBG application for Florida Department of Economic Development and Opportunities. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Dawn Cobb with Martin County Human Services, the Housing Program Coordinator. I have with me Corbett Allday, who's with Guardian Community Resource Management. This is the first public hearing to be able to apply for CDBG. 2 public hearings are required to ensure citizen input on any public CDBG application. This is the first public hearing, subject to the review of eligible activities on the CDBG grant for 2020-21. And
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioners. I am Corbett Allday with Guardian Community Resource Management, offices Dade City. For the record, this is a first public hearing to consider the Community Development Block Grant Program for this county. The process is we review the CDBG program in categories, and we review the eligible activities in the presentation. Then we open up for public comment, and then we can have board comment, and finally staff input. This is a federal-funded program. Federal funds come to the state of Florida. The state develops a rule and then an application process. And the main objective of the program is to benefit low and moderate income persons. It is very, very competitive. This happens to be a double cycle year, so it's a very good year to apply. The community-wide needs scores are based on background scores, but the rest of the application is optional points. To give you an idea of what low to moderate income persons is, family of 4 would be $64,000 would be low to moderate income. And there you see the annual income for 2022 for up to a family of 8. The categories, there are 3 regular categories of CDBG, of which the county can have 1 open at a time. The first option is neighborhood revitalization. It requires a neighborhood of at least 85 LMI households. It's for water, sewer, roads, stormwater, neighborhood centers, parks, and sidewalks, and these kinds of things in the neighborhoods. And the low to moderate income benefit comes from the houses in the neighborhood. Housing rehabilitation is the second option for the regular category. It is a open process where we have a housing assistance plan that we follow, and we have a countywide application process for the unincorporated county for owner-occupied houses to ask for code, safety, and health-related repairs, including ADA repairs for those who are handicapped. The last of the 3 regular categories is commercial revitalization, which requires a community redevelopment agency and 51% LMI in that CRA. The priority for commercial revitalization is sidewalks, parking, lighting, building codes, and facades. Outside of the regular category, we can have one of those 3 regular categories that we spoke about, but we can also have economic development going at the same time. Whereas the regular category is up to $750,000, the economic development grant is up to $1.5 million, and it is based on jobs creation. The money can be spent on water, sewer, rail, traffic, roads, gas, or fiber. Just for an example, for the economic development, if you applied for $1.5 million, you'd have to create 43 jobs, and 22 of those would have to be made available to people who are from LMI households. The process and the action plan from here, this is the first public hearing. we're holding in June. We're going to next draft the application. Then on the second public hearing at the early July meeting, we'll discuss the specific application, and then the application has to be submitted July 21st. Economic development applications can be received until funds are expended. So just a recap of the process, the next step is opening it up to the public, and then the commission input, then staff, we can give you our input. And that is our presentation for the first public hearing. Thank you very much.
Sir, any questions?
I do.
Commissioner Heatherington?
So the next step is going to take public input. Are you going to go to the CRAs? What's your plan to take public input?
I mean, for the board right now, to open up the public hearing.
With the commission.
Before commission discussion.
Then
As a
after you
CDBG
get the commission input, you're going to take public input?
No, the CDBG procedure is we have to open up the public hearing before we hear commissioner comments, and then the last comments we can hear our staff.
So right now, what
So
he's
the-
saying
yeah, in other words,
is that
we
you would
can't-
ask if any of the public has any comments on it, and then it would be
So this is
your
the public
comments. So
involvement
this is
So
seeking.
this hearing is the public involvement process?
Correct, from now till we apply.
I would just suggest that maybe you go to some of the CRA, the neighborhood advisory councils, and present this as part of the public process.
We did discuss some options with the CRA manager and some of the CRA areas and some potential projects in the area, and we can discuss that once you've had your public hearing, once you've allowed for public input. So,
So I think, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, I think what she's asking is that post this hearing,
oh, yeah.
now
After
and
this hearing,
June,
yes.
because you'll be back in June, correct?
Yes.
We'll be back in July.
I mean, July, sorry. You'll be back in July? Between now and then, if you could do some outreach to the CRA neighborhood advisory committees, I think that's what,
Yes, that's exactly what I'm,
that she's asking.
Suggesting.
Just so that there's a broader outreach of information going out and coming back. You don't necessarily have to come down for that, but is that okay? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody would like to speak or comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board.
motion to,
Do we need Dawn, do we need a motion
Well, what
to?
we're looking for is move that the board direct Human Services Program to, for application for CDBG. We're looking for the housing rehabilitation part, because when we were looking into for the commercial in the neighborhood, you would have to have the projects shovel-ready, and we would have to have been able to knock on doors and actually do a manual house-to-house to find out if they're income qualified. And for this grant opened up just last month. It just came out of nowhere, so we didn't really have time to go knocking on doors.
Okay.
Or be shovel-ready with those projects.
So you just confused me. What is it you'd like?
We are looking for you to ask us to proceed with the application, gearing it towards the housing I can't get the word out of my mouth.
Vitalization.
Thank you.
Housing rehabilitation.
Okay. George, did you want to?
Mr. Chair, yeah, George Stokas, Assistant County Administrator. So this can be a little bit of a confusing process. This is the public hearing just to begin the discussions with the public. Our staff will definitely go back and talk to the NACs as well as collect other comment from other county staff and other public input. We currently seek to use the home revitalization program. And as a part of a component of that, we do hook up people who are income eligible to the sewer and water systems that we're newly installing in the CRAs. We are a little bit behind the curve because we have to have that. We typically have that installed through your sewer and water process, and then we go and knock on doors. Some of the neighborhoods that we're putting work in, we don't meet the demographic or the income eligibility per CDBG, but staff is working with Mr. Alday as well as our other grant consultant, Mr. Andy Seth, as to try and find ways to blend grant projects and work with the county process and our CIP so that we get the full effect of really trying to hook up 100% of the folks that are eligible for these programs. So I apologize for the confusion, but the system in itself is very confusing. But we do have some projects that probably not necessarily for this year's opening, but maybe next year's opening will be more eligible for, just because, again, it has to be shovel ready, and that's a requirement of the federal government or the state government. One of those two. So I just hope that brought some clarity to the process. Or it looks like I confused you even more, Mr. Chair.
No.
So what we're looking for is a motion from the commission to authorize staff to go forward with that housing application.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will see you back in July. For folks in the audience, we're going to move up public hearing item number 3. And we're going to ask that our Sheriff's Department hold off to follow that. We have a bunch of people in the audience, I'm sure, that would like to get on with their day. So the public hearing item 3 is a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 9 Animals, General Ordinances, Martin County Code, including but not limited to prohibition of the sales of rabbits, dogs, cats at pet stores. Ms. Woods.
Yes, Mr. Chair. As the board knows, beginning in the late 2021 and early 2022, the board began receiving communications asking the board to consider an ordinance prohibiting the sale of dogs and cats at pet stores. The board directed the staff to investigate that. Mr. Stokas, along with my office, contacted the Humane Society of the Treasure Coast, who arranged for a meeting with representatives of the Humane Society of the United States, the Florida Division. And I'd like to mention we have Kate McFall here, who assisted us. At the time, that agency was working with the Florida legislature to try to do a statewide prohibition of the sale of dogs and cats in pet stores. And so they were instrumental, and I want to ask them in providing recommendations to us as well as directing us to other Florida counties who had adopted similar ordinances with success. I'll just briefly outline the revisions to our current animal control ordinance. One of the reasons this is so thick is we've decided the Sheriff's Department asked us to change the name of the Animal Services Division to the Animal Services Unit. As I say, we are, the Sheriff's Department provides animal services enforcement for Martin County. We've added a definition for an animal shelter or a private nonprofit organization, and we've added definitions of cat, dog, and rabbit. And then we've also amended definition of pet store to exclude the purchase of rabbits, dogs, and cats. There's also an addition to Section 9.87A, which provides as follows, and I'll just paraphrase. Pet stores shall not offer for sale rabbits, dogs, or cats. This subsection shall not prohibit pet stores from collaborating with animal shelters or private nonprofit organizations, again referencing our new definition, to offer space for such entities to showcase adoptable rabbits, dogs, and cats, provided the pet store shall not have any ownership interest in the animals offered for adoption and shall not receive a fee for providing safe for the adoption of these animals. As I failed to mention, of course, your Animal Care and Control Advisory Board reviewed a draft ordinance on April 21st, 2022 at their meeting, and they suggested that we add rabbits to the prohibition because they're also apparently, and our Humane Society verified that there's, around Easter time, there's a huge influx right after Easter of bunnies where people have purchased them and then realize that they're probably a bit more work than they anticipated. In addition, your ACCOB also recommended that there be, I'll use it, a grandfather clause or an amortization period that would allow any pet stores that are currently selling rabbits, dogs, and cats, that they'd be given a year to comply with the ordinance. And with those two additions, the ACCOB unanimously recommended approval of the ordinance that's before you. I do want to explain the amortization period. It allows that any existing pet store that's lawfully operating on or before June 30th of this year will be permitted to continue until June 30th of 2023. But as a condition of it, the pet store can't increase or enlarge its floor space. They have to provide proof to our animal services unit of existing retail sales that they were in existence as of June 30th, 2022. It provides for the documentation. And failure to provide documentation will result in the loss of the nonconforming status. Any existing pet store that voluntarily abandons the retail sale for more than a 30-day period will also cease to have its nonconforming status. And again, I know we have some members of our ACCOB here, and they could explain that they felt it was fair to allow any existing businesses that sell to wind down their operation and transition to just the sale of pet supplies. And with that, I'm happy to try, I don't know if Mr. Stokas wants to add anything.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to take a moment to just recognize some folks that really helped me in this process. First, I want to start with Ms. Burgess, although I think I actually speak to her. I think we played a little bit of voicemail tag. Her providing me extensive examples from other counties and some sample language really got me started on the trail of this project. I wanted to thank Mr. Valenti with the Treasure Coast Humane Society in Martin County for helping me out as well as our members of the ACCOB. And I couldn't list all the not-for-profits, the folks I ran into. I mean, this was not a year-long process. We turned this around in about less than 6 months to get it to the ACCOB. But other not-for-profit entities that I talked to, as well as I wanted to thank St. Lucie County and Orange County Animal Services Divisions, because I made extensive calls, especially to the folks in Orange County who have enacted a very similar ordinance, as well as St. Lucie. And then also, finally, Mr. Willie Weiss, who did some research and some investigation to the two stores that are currently operating in Martin County. And without all those folks' help, I don't think, and of course Martin County Legal, I don't think we could have drafted, I think, what's an excellent example of an ordinance that will actually work and then also meets the new Florida state statutes and provides a transition time for existing businesses. I mean, it was a really good balance, and it was a real education for myself. So I did enjoy it.
I do want to mention that there are similar ordinances in our surrounding counties, and so a part of the discussion with the ACCOB, I think was mentioned this morning in public comment by Mrs. Campenny, that we. By taking action to this, we don't provide a haven for this sort of a situation of the selling of dogs and cats and puppies, rabbits in pet stores. And the staff recommendation, consistent with the ACCOB recommendation, is that the board adopt the proposed ordinance. Available for any questions.
All of that. We do have a couple lights. Commissioner Heatherington?
Ms. Woods, would this only apply to the unincorporated area, and would the city of Stuart, if so, would the city of Stuart have to adopt something similar? If it seems to me that the speaker that referenced the stores, that those might be in the city.
Yes, they are in the city. I've coordinated with all of the municipalities. Martin County provides animal control for unincorporated and incorporated areas, and so my understanding, we've made this ordinance apply to both incorporated and unincorporated areas of the county. If any of the municipalities wanted to opt out, they could, but the intent of this ordinance is to apply countywide. It would be enforced through our animal services unit, which which operates countywide within the city. So as to those, if there's two existing pet stores, they would be notified by our animal services unit, and we'd coordinate.
And I just want to add, I have been in contact with Mr. Dave Dias since pretty much December of last year, so he's well aware of this ordinance. They've been following it very quietly. They recognize there's an issue, and I believe Mr. Mortel has been working with Ms.
Yes.
Woods. So they're prepared to do what they need to do, and I also know that Mr. Weiss has been working with the Stewart Police Department as well, letting them know what the Sheriff's Department's going to be doing once this ordinance is adopted.
I provided copies of the ordinance and the agenda item to all the Village of Indiantown, Town of Ocean Breeze, Jupiter Island, Sewell's Point, and City of Stewart.
You okay with that? Commissioner Campy?
Thank you. First off, I'm happy that we're bringing this forward today. I had the opportunity to originally hear about this when Carrie Burgess asked me to meet with her from the Farm Dog Rescue. And as Mr. Stokas mentioned, and I appreciate that he acknowledged Carrie and Frank from the Humane Society of the Treasure Coast, the collaboration there was helpful for us so that it was a unified voice. Couple of concerns. First off, Ms. Burgess was able to hand me a packet of information like you mentioned, and I gave it to our legal department. That did a lot of the legwork. It wasn't like, hey, I have this idea, I think the county should be doing this, and best of luck to you. She really did the legwork, so I appreciate her efforts. And, you know, it's interesting that most of the not-for-profits and the Humane Society are located in District 5, so I have been really involved in most of those groups and used district funds to assist because I think that this is a very important issue, and for many of our residents, it's one of the most important issues is the fair and ethical treatment of animals. Two concerns. One, I understand, having been a small business owner myself, that there should be a transition period for people to transition out of this practice. However, to me, a year allows countless number of pets to still be sold under probably difficult circumstances. So we're basically, and then there'll be families that go in there unknowingly purchasing animals that we had heard from a speaker this morning might not be as healthy as they are promoted to be, might end up costing those families thousands of dollars worth of veterinary bills, might then be a burden on the not-for-profits and the Humane Society when people just figure, I can't afford a $2,000 vet bill for a pet that I just purchased, as well as the fact, and I'm not saying specifically that the ones that are located here in Martin County, but there is another side of this business, which is the financing of these pets for people that don't know any better, go into one of these operations, see these beautiful pets, and then buy one potentially approximately for $3,000 or $4,000 through a financing situation that then puts them in a difficult spot to then have to make these. So if there was a possibility of shaving that year to 6 months, I think that that is fair to the business, but fair to everybody else that I just mentioned. And if that is not an option, and even if it is, I think we also need to have the ability to have unannounced inspection of these facilities, the entire facility, not just come in and speak to an owner or an employee and not be able to see the back room, the closet, the storage facility out back. I think that we need to still understand that if these places are going to operate, that if it be for a year, that they should expect to run their operation as ethically and as appropriately and as morally acceptable as possible. Because this is fraught with a lot of peril for, obviously, the animals, and I agree with you about the rabbits. For whatever reason, a lot of people find it, I guess, cute to purchase a bunny and give it to their families for Easter, and within weeks realize they made a terrible mistake. And the only person or individual or the only life that pays the price is the rabbit that had nothing to do with it, that's given to a family that within weeks say, no, thank you. But other than that, I'm very much appreciative to the members of our public that helped us put this together. I was talking to Ms. Burgess recently and to Mr. Valente, how this is another step that our board has taken. Originally, we passed an ordinance that did not allow people, I guess we penalized or criminalized the fact that some people during the downturn in the economy, when they would just abandon their homes, left their pets in their homes to die. Unless the neighbors would have realized that there were pets. And then a couple of years ago, we passed an ordinance that did not allow people to tether or chain up their pets outside to a tree all day with no water or vulnerable to attack from other animals because they were chained up. So I think we're on the right track. I've asked my friends in the animal rescue business if there was other issues that other counties have done that we need to address as well. This is a step in the right direction. And when it's appropriate, Mr. Chair, I'd be thrilled to make the motion to accept staff's approval if we can talk about those other issues. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's do that before we go to public. Ms. Woods?
To address the inspection, I think currently, if I'm not mistaken, the Animal Services Unit has the ability under the existing ordinances to inspect for keeping, because there's certain standards that are outlined in our existing ordinance for facilities that have animals there. So they would have that opportunity, I believe, to inspect. And I don't believe that there's anything in the ordinance that requires a notice. But again, that's a question of enforcement for the Sheriff's Animal Services Division. To shorten the period to 6 months, that's at the discretion of the board. The ACCOB had some discussion about it and recommended a year, but again, it's ultimately up to the pleasure of the board.
If my colleagues would to agree, I'd make that as part of my motion.
Before we go any further on that, when you were researching the other ordinance adoptions throughout the state, was there a timeline? Was there a reason for a year? Was there a reason for 6 months?
There were a few counties that, Mr. Chair, there were a few counties that did 6 months, but they were kind of ahead of the pack before the new state statute was brought into play. But Orange County just picked a year, and they were I believe, don't quote me, I think they were actively litigated against, and the year stood up as a reasonable time frame. I remember reading something like that. But then again, there were other places that did 6 months, some did 9. It was just, I think the ACCOB just had a discussion, and I think they just came down on a year because they thought that was reasonable for a time frame for a business to transition from one mode of business to the other. But there were also other members on the ACCOB that were compelled that thought, they argued from it should be 30 days to 6 months to a year. So it's really up to the discretion of the board. I think there were a lot of places that did 6 months. I'd say 4 or 5 counties that I read about. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Hetherington?
The rabbit thing kind of caught me off guard. But so if I'm going to be a responsible, say, a 4-H member or a FFA member, and I'm going to raise a rabbit for the fair, I'm not sure exactly if they get rabbits from stores or, tack and feed stores, but would that prohibit some, a 4-H member or someone from going in and buying a rabbit to raise for the fair?
No,
Mr. Chair, I think the idea is for pet stores, for buying them from a pet store that's selling them. I don't know, and I don't know where people, but I would assume that if you bought it from a breeder or from a livestock.
What if a breeder then markets it at a feed store, which is where I think maybe some.
That would be within, my understanding is that would comply with the ordinance, because the ordinance deals with that you basically can't sell the pet. The pet store does not profit on the sale of the animal, nor does it allow for the rental of space to sell the animal. The transaction is occurring between you, the buyer, and the reputable breeder or the actual person that we're trying to mitigate a mill type of situation. So it would, and I know this is going to sound funny, but I actually talked to, there's a few people that live where I live that are reputable rabbit breeders, and I know way too much about rabbit breeding, to the embarrassment of my wife, by the way, from the golf cart. That there are reputable streams in which, and they do go to feed stores, and this one lady I talked to, she sells rabbits at around 4-H time to the kids at like the feed store in Okeechobee, and there's no, she doesn't pay rent, she's not, but she sells it, and that way they're kind of registered, I guess, kind of like dogs, that they know where the rabbit came from.
Sell it through the feed store?
Yeah.
Or does she advertise through the feed store, and it's a private transaction?
Yeah, there's like a season. Like I guess you have to get the rabbit at a certain time and then raise it to show it at the fair. So she would go she would advertise it, and has a long-standing established relationship at this store in Okeechobee. And some of the 4-H kids from Okeechobee will go and get their little bunnies from there. But where the problem is if you have other stores that just constantly have rabbits, and we all think it's cute at Easter time to get a bunny, like Commissioner Campy said, then you go to the Humane Society of the Treasure Coast and they have 44 rabbits 2 weeks after Easter, and that's a problem.
I understand. I just wanted to clarify, to see if there would be unintended consequences for those that would be raising those in a responsible way through a 4-H program.
I think legal did a very good job of trying not to break the transaction process for those of people who are reputable, both on the breeding side and on the consumer side. And I think the ordinance, of course, you can't catch every single person, but this net's pretty fine in the sense that it really takes away the transactional element of the businesses. So I, as a business, can't go and buy a bunch of puppies from out of state, have them, and then sell that puppy or kitten or rabbit to a consumer. It has to be really, you're connecting the consumer to the breeder. So there's no monetary profit that comes from the sale of animals, and then you get into this milling process, as I understand it, Commissioners.
Okay, we do have a handful of public speakers that would like to address this item. The first one up would be Michael Circus. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Michael?
You.
I apologize. The older I get, the more I find my ears are simply ornamental. On the positive side, I wasn't a good reader in high school, but closed captioning has really improved that ability. Michael Circus from Palm City. I just wanted to come up this morning and bring to you guys a simple truth I think has been overlooked. The way in which we conduct our actions is just as important, if not more important, than the decisions we actually make. This ordinance, what it's going to do effectively is create a monopoly in the benefit of not-for-profit organizations for animals sales in Martin County for domesticated animals. And let me be clear, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. But what it is going to make illegal private enterprise from conducting sales that they're otherwise legally allowed to sell here in the county to begin with. The reason why this is important is because when we highlight, even from staff's presentation this morning, this ordinance has been crafted from the perspective and the recommendation of not-for-profit organizations. Namely, a not-for-profit organization this county has a almost $10 million investment in over 10 years. Why is all that important? Well, quite frankly, it's hard to suggest that there is no skin in the game from the commission, that there is no conflict of interest. Again, the way we conduct our business, regardless of the quality of the sentiment, is extremely important. Many people have stated, all five of you have alluded to, some of you have openly admitted, that there's a disconnect right now between the people of Martin County and their government. There's a feeling that the government works in benefit of the government, not necessarily to the will of the people. I'm not necessarily opposed to this ordinance, but it is clear, if I were a pet shop owner, the first thing I would scream is this is a conflict of interest. This is written by the people that will be sole beneficiaries, and this is a group of individuals that have been invested in by the county. So the idea that the five of you can cast a vote today and say with a straight face that there is no conflict of interest, if I were a pet shop owner, I'd be extremely concerned. I would highly implore you to make this a citizen ballot initiative or whatever it's called. Put it on the ballot and let the people of Martin County vote on it. If you do believe this is the right course of action, then sell your idea to the people of Martin County. Remove yourselves from that conflict of interest and allow the people of Martin County to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Circus. Gary Burgess, please. Gary, please. And following Ms. Burgess, Tracy Hickler, is that right? Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Carrie Burgess. I am representing the Farm Dog Rescue, and I don't have a monopoly on pet selling in Martin County. We noticed last fall that there were a couple of pet stores popping up in Martin County, and I think, as you've all pointed out, it was because the surrounding counties had created ordinances against such pet stores, so they started to flood into Martin County. So I had started to have conversations with the commissioners, and with the help of Jenny Sherlock, we had come forth with a recommendation for an ordinance change. Since that time, and I 100% support the reduction in the time into 6 months for the changeover on the pet stores. Since that time in the fall, we've already seen the repercussions come from the pet stores. So from a rescue standpoint, I run at 10 to 15 surrender calls a day from our local community, from actual owners. And with the pet stores coming in, I mean, we're actually trucking animals into our community, which is already a pet overpopulation issue. But that being said, the financial burden, which falls on the residents, the nonprofits, and at the end, the community at large, for all the medical issues that come up with the animals. I'm already getting calls from the community saying that they bought this puppy. It was an emotional purchase. They spent thousands of dollars on it. The medical is so great that they cannot, afford to keep the dog, and they either need help and assistance financially or for us to take in the dog. So it's going to continue. So the time of a year is a challenge, just because there's that many animals that are going to be, put into our community. So I would strongly recommend the 6 month that has been, suggested today. But nonetheless, I really appreciate you adding it to the agenda. I appreciate the attention for our pets in the community. And I'm grateful, that we've had an opportunity to bring this forward. I recommend that you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
And Tracy Hickler. And following Ms. Hickler is Mary Hutchinson.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Hickler. I own Dogs in Bloom Dog Training, a local dog training company. The reason I am here today is to give a voice to the voiceless. I will attempt to only state the facts that I know to be true. It seems that most people see a pet store as a convenient location to acquire adorable little puppies, but what they don't think about, and for some reason the general population doesn't know about, is where all these cute little puppies come from. Because I'm quite sure if they knew, they would be just as upset as I am about it. As an industry professional, it is common knowledge that 90% of dogs in puppy stores come from puppy mills. Just Google pet stores and puppy mills and look at the connection. That means the majority of those adorable little puppies' parents live in, quite frankly, a living hell. Tiny cages with multiple dogs stuffed into one cage, animals that never see sunlight or touch grass, ever. They live in tiny crates with their fur matted from their own feces and urine. Animals that don't know any love or true care. Animals that are bred over and over and over again without any basic human care. Excuse me. And when they're no good and can't breed anymore, they aren't even humanely euthanized. Most places will just shoot them in the head with a nail gun, because they don't even want to spend the price for a bullet or, God forbid, humanely euthanize them to end their suffering. So it's simply not just about the puppies in the stores, which I'll get to in a minute. It's about where they come from in the first place. This was brought to my attention about 2 months ago, when I didn't even know that our little community had any pet stores, and was blown away by the fact that they were allowed in the first place. In the last 2 months alone, I've had 6 new clients call in with dogs that they purchased from one of these local puppy stores. All of the puppies, aside from one, came out of the store sick. 3 had kennel cough when they were purchased and sent home. The stores never shut down to contain the virus, just kept working and selling sick puppies. Another one of the puppies was purchased by a daughter with an elderly mother. Her mother's beloved dog had just passed, and she thought, what a wonderful idea, what a convenient location to pick up this cute little new friend for her sad mom. Almost immediately after purchasing this puppy and taking this cute little thing home, they realized something was very wrong. That puppy spent the next 48 hours in an emergency medical hospital for animals and almost died. You see, when you get puppies from a puppy store, typically they are from puppy mills, where there is no health testing, no health certifications, and no regulations. I appreciate you listening this morning, and I also believe that 6 months is plenty of time for these people to get their matters under control and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mary Hutchinson, followed by Celia Safardis.
I snap, crackle, and pop on my way up here.
Morning.
Good morning. Commissioners, I just would like to ask for you to please pass this ordinance, as the people prior to me have given the reasons for it to be passed in this area. I remember as a kid, I would go to the mall, and you'd go into to the mall where I lived, and there'd be a cute little puppy, and only was until I got older that I realized where those animals actually came from, as Tracy mentioned earlier. And like everybody else, a couple years ago, when I went driving down US 1, I saw somebody flipping that sign that said puppies. I was just flabbergasted that this was allowed in our community, because I thought at this day and age that those would be gone and they wouldn't be here. But because other counties have passed those ordinances and we have not, they're now in our community. I know that everybody that is in animal rescue would love to not be in the business, but unfortunately here we are. Please pass this ordinance for the protection, as people said, of those animals that cannot speak for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Sadia? Good morning. That's the last public speaker forum I have for this item. Anybody else wish to speak on that, please get the bailiff your slip.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Sadia Saftaridis from Golden Gate. I'm hearing the ordinance about puppies and birds and stuff, but nobody mentioned chickens. Because Golden Gate, we have problem with chickens. They all over the place. So is anything you could add to the ordinance about chickens, banning them from the residential? I have no problem if the chicken is an agricultural area. However, we do have problem when they are waking you up at 4 in the morning or noises. And the chickens are very filthy. They bring snakes, they bring rats, they bring foxes. I mean, it's just ridiculous to have kids on one hand in this house, and then there's a bunch of chicken all over the place. So that's why I'm here. My NAC last night voted to support no chickens in our area, please. I'm only speaking for Golden Gate. So if you would please add something about chickens, if you could ban them or whatever you can do, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Might want to stick around for the next item. That's the last public speaker forum I have. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, back to the board. We had a motion. Did we have a second?
What's the motion?
The motion was for the recommended ordinance plus the added to it the reduction of timeline to 6 months versus a year.
So,
Second.
I'm sorry.
If I may, so the change would be to the, let me get the right one. Section, Section 9.87A.19A, or no, B, would change the amortization period, so it would, instead of going from June 30th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, it would be December 31st, 2022, which would shorten the time. And so just for clarification, that would be the period. Correct, Commissioner Campy, for the motion maker and the seconder?
Yes, I think that's fair to the business owner. 6 months is plenty of time to either reinvent yourself or move to another county where they have yet to put these ordinances in place. And it saves the unnecessary burden for families and pets, 6 months extra.
We have a motion, we have a second. Commissioner, you agree to the
Yes.
language? Anybody else from the board? Commissioner Heatherington?
I wanted to just pose that question to legal because they presented the 12-month, and I'm certainly fine with the puppy ordinance, but is that, I can't remember who mentioned that other counties had done that to prevent lawsuits. So do you feel that 6 months is going to open us up to legal challenge?
I don't think necessarily. I think 6 months, again, the 1 year was a recommendation of the ACCOB based on their professional opinion. But, again, ultimately it's the board's decision, and there have been jurisdictions that had a 6-month amortization period. So, recognizing Commissioner Campy's concerns stated, I think, we have the same type of concern about the citizens of Martin County, so we'd be willing to, we can defend it based on 6 months.
Okay.
My guess is if someone is inclined to challenge, they'll challenge whether it's 6 months
Yes,
or
ma'am.
a year. It doesn't really probably make too much difference at that level. And at the same time, Ms. Woods just said it, and maybe there's an additional way to say it. It's a health, safety, welfare issue relative to the operation of our community and our county, and that probably stands on its own in a very strong way. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very, very much. Next item on the agenda, we're going to go back to public hearing, item number 2, public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance providing for residential and other restrictions on sexual offenders and sexual predators. Mr. Arthur, good morning.
Good morning. David Arthur, Senior Assistant County Attorney. This agenda item concerns protecting children from sexual offenders and sexual predators. I will refer to them collectively as sexual offenders. The proposed ordinance, which would be county-wide, that is, the unincorporated and incorporated portions of Martin County, would prohibit sexual offenders from residing within 2,500 feet of a public or private kindergarten, elementary, middle, secondary, or high school, or a facility operated by the Martin County Public School System. This includes rental properties and imposes duties on landlords to do background checks on prospective tenants. The proposed ordinance would prohibit sexual offenders from knowingly accessing parks when children under 16 years of age are present, with an exception for an offender who is the parent or legal guardian of a child present in the park. The proposed ordinance would prohibit sexual offenders from accessing child care facilities, with an exception for an offender picking up or dropping off his or her child at the facility, and the facility is supervising this activity. The proposed ordinance would prohibit sexual offenders from knowingly being within 300 feet of any child safety zone, that is, schools, child care facilities, parks, and school bus stops, when children under 16 years of age are present and the offender is engaging in conduct manifesting an intent to commit a sexual offense, with specific examples of such conduct set forth in the ordinance. This type of conduct is known as loitering or prowling. We have conferred with our municipalities, and they approve of this ordinance. We have worked closely with the Martin County Sheriff's Office, which requested this ordinance, and they approve it. In drafting this ordinance, staff used the Miami-Dade County ordinance as a model because it has been upheld by the 3rd District Court of Appeal twice. Statewide, there are at least 16 other counties that have enacted similar ordinances. In fact, if you drive from Miami to Vero, we are the only county on the way that does not have this 2,500-foot restriction. Currently, Martin County merely has a 1,000-foot residency restriction by default based upon a state statute. Protecting children is obviously of paramount importance. We recommend approval.
Thank you. Mr. Dulac, would you like to come up and share with us some thoughts?
Morning, Commissioners. I'm Sergeant Dan Dulac with the Martin County Sheriff's Office. I just wanted to weigh in and give the support of the Sheriff's Office. We worked closely with the commission attorneys, and we were very appreciative of them working on this. They put a lot of work into this, and I think this is a very important ordinance. My unit, I have detectives that deal with enforcing this, so we are ready to enforce it as written, and appreciate everything.
Hang on for any questions. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I first had the opportunity to speak with staff about this, I was actually surprised that that we were in the certain circumstances that we are. What Mr. Arthur just said earlier bears repeating, that from Miami to Vero, which encompasses hundreds of miles and millions of people, we're the only county that has left this open at this level. So I appreciate our law enforcement personnel working within the original parameters of what you had to deal with, but also with staff to put this together. I'm thrilled to be able to tighten the restriction, because the thing about leaving us vulnerable to that is that I'm sure within that community, people realized you could live here and have more options. So similar to the last agenda item, when your surrounding communities, and in this case, the whole region, has a more restrictive requirement, folks will come here. So I can't wait for this restriction to narrow in its distance requirement, and we're taking a big step today to protect our children of the community. I'm thrilled to make the motion to staff's recommendation of approval.
Be happy to second it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to address us on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. The only thing I guess I would add, I hope that it will pass, but I suspect maybe we can add this to our legislative platform for this coming year, that just for the very simple reason of what you pointed out, that we're the only jurisdiction within the southern Florida area that didn't have the 2,500, it would seem like it would make sense that it ought to be a statewide requirement from the state legislature to say all 67 counties should be consistent. So there's not, one county does it one way, one county does it a different way. Why not have a uniform application across the state, so that you're not forcing, or as Commissioner Campy just said, some may live in a county or a community because you're at 1,000 foot versus 2,500 foot, and that's maybe not fair to everybody involved. And there may be a lot of our counties that just don't have the resources and the wherewithal to enforce or to even enact a different type of ordinance in some of our smaller counties. So that may be something we might want to consider putting it on our legislative request this year, if that's of interest. I'm sorry?
I'm seeing agreement.
Okay. And with that, there's no further discussion from the board. There's a motion, there's a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All is opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. David, thank you. Appreciate it. We will. It is 10:30. We will take our closed captioning break. We will come back at 20 till 11.
You're on.
Okay, everybody, welcome back from our morning break. We will take up department item number 1, Office of Management Budget, items which require board approval. Ms. Manning, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Manning, OMB Director. The first item is permission to, the Sheriff Office is requesting permission to apply for the FY22 body-worn camera policy and implementation program through BJA. They're expecting, if awarded, the grant would be $532,000. They would like to, if that is successful, it'll be used to offset some of the costs that he presented to you a couple of weeks ago. And so we wish him all the luck on that one. The second item is permission. The Administration Department is requesting permission to apply for a $44,389 grant. And it's for the House of Refuge. They would like to replace windows with the existing windows with impact-resistant windows. And it would require a $44,389 match. And that would need to be identified if that grant is successful. Item number 3 is permission. The Public Works is asking permission to apply for the No Admission Vehicle Program Grant through the Federal Transit Administration. The award amount would be $5.2 million. If successful, it would be used to relocate the buses, the operations, and the maintenance to a regional transit center facility. The total project cost is estimated at $6.5 million. Sorry.
That's okay. Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, is this county property?
Yes, it is. It's on Willoughby.
So this would take up all the county property that the county owns there, which is a sizable portion. We've talked publicly about the uses for this parcel for many, many years, saving it for something significant. So this would use that entire parcel. And what's the county's obligation for maintaining the facility?
Mr. Donaldson's going to speak to the, or Mr. Zama, which one?
Good morning.
Good morning. Don Donaldson, Deputy County Administrator for the record. So the grant is to serve as a building. The location was that we're looking at is one of the vacant parcels around the where we have fire rescue vehicle maintenance and some of those parcels over by the building department. There's a couple of small parcels in there that were identified as potential sites. The obligation would be that, yes, the Federal Transit Administration would provide the funding for the construction of the building. It would have to serve for transit for its economic life, with I think it's 25 years. And the continued operation would be still funded by federal transit grants along with county match dollars that we currently provide. The facility that is currently servicing this is we're paying rent and paying a contractor to maintain the operation as it is now. So this would lower the cost of operation, which would allow us to provide more transit service stops by using federal funds to construct and help to maintain the building.
And the size of the parcel is?
I don't recall. It's 5 acres, I believe we were looking at. Yes, 5 acres.
And what is the annual cost of maintenance for the next 25 years?
It would be in proportional to the size of the building. I can't say, but it would be no costs that were, like I said, were already included in our rent and other payments that we're doing now. So it would be, it is not proposed to change the operational budget of the transit operations.
But this is a much more ambitious project than our existing.
Our existing is we're paying. We don't have a facility for transit at this point in time. So we contract service. So the bus drivers and such like that, we do have a separate parking lot for the buses, and then the actual operation is out of a rental facility in Commerce.
Yeah, I don't have enough information on this to approve it. So when we get to that point, I would like to have this item extracted from the remainder of the items in this Department 1.
Okay, and I would imagine during budget, we will have a further discussion. We can have a further discussion, even though we've done CIP. We could certainly talk about it at that point when you have more information.
Yeah, so this is just the application for the grant. It's not an award, so this will allow us to seek the grant funding, and it would come back to you for an award.
And we can, George Zama, the Martin County Public Works Deputy Director. This is just to get, like Don said, to get the application in. We can potentially change sites mid-cycle, but, you know, just to get skin in the game.
Question, is the grant attached to the site, or is it just the grant application for the funds?
Well, the site, the property is the in-kind match, so it has to be an equivalent value.
Okay, good to know.
So what are the alternative sites? I mean, we've chased sites for various county facilities for 20 years, and we never have any.
So we're proposing county-owned facilities, so there isn't, or we're not looking to acquire any property, you know. So the sites that were looked at on Willoughby next to the school and other sites that were looked at that are county-owned, it also has to be within the service area of the transit building. So we couldn't put it, for instance, at the landfill. But looking at various sites, we do have a couple small properties that are incidents around the jail and other areas that we could shoehorn this in that would satisfy the requirements.
But as George just said, the only challenge to this is that, let's say the property is valued at $1 million, right, as part of the grant application. If we chose not that piece of property, you'd have to have an equivalent valued piece of property per the grant application. I mean, is that accurate to?
Yes, we're just, right, we're providing the in-kind we're providing the property.
Like, we couldn't come back to them and say, hey, we decided to use this property over here, and this one's only $500,000, and we used $1 million match property for the other application. Would that trip us up somewhere?
You know, potentially, although I think your staff are pretty clever at working with the
I would appreciate that.
agencies
I'm just trying to.
I think the opportunity is we've been looking for a grant opportunity to build this building for some time. With the current federal cycle, there is some funds available. We have a couple of properties that would suit it, but we're willing to continue to discuss with the board the optimum location.
Awesome.
What's the in-kind value of this property?
1.3 million.
That was close. Close. You set?
Yes.
Commissioner Heatherington.
Are there, in addition to maintaining the building, are there other obligations that comes with accepting a grant like this as far as service, route service, adding capacity, those kind of?
No, it's just that if you using federal transit funds, you could not use it as a park facility. You would have to stay for transit operation. There's no obligation to provide more service, or you could conceivably even provide less. It's just that it has to be used for transit operations.
I would, regardless whether we apply, it would be nice to see an item come back on, you know, what our future plans are on transit.
Okay. We'll separate this item out when it comes time for motion for Commissioner Hurd.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, item number 4, Parks and Recreation, is requesting permission to apply for the after-school, out-of-school program grant. It can be up to $400,000. This provides staff, programming, supplies, and maintenance. The program includes homework help, physical fitness, social and emotional learning, outdoor recreation, arts and dance, and a lot more other programs. And it requires a match, and the match dollars are budgeted in our operational budget. Fifth item is permission to accept the federal emergency hazard mitigation grant, modification number 3 for the elevation of MacArthur Boulevard. It's adding an additional $93,372, and it also requires an additional $20,000 match. Item number 6 is permission to accept the Federal Emergency Management Agency grant. Again, this is for the hazard mitigation road elevation project, Phase 3. The total project cost is $5.2 million. The grant award would provide $2.2 million for construction. We would require almost $3 million matched for this grant, and those funds will come from reimbursements from prior year hurricane funds. Okay. Item number 7 is adjustments to the fiscal year budget FY 2022. The first one is due to the high performance of the Seaside Cafe. Their revenues are exceeding projections, and we're estimating that it'll have an approximately $300,000 over projection, and we would like to allocate those funds with respective expenditure line items. B is for the allocation of $50,000 for insurance proceeds for traffic incidents, and we would like the corresponding expense for those repairs. Item C is a budget resolution for the City of Stuart. The Public Works Department provides the service for the grant, which is our LAP agreement. We're LAP certified, so we oversee their grant, and they're providing $102,000 for additional costs associated with that project at Green River Parkway. So we're asking permission to accept those funds.
Jennifer, hang on 1 second. Commissioner Heatherington?
This is not probably a question for Jennifer, but are we still overseeing that LAP
This is probably one of the last.
process, or is that going to continue?
No.
So this is one of the last projects that we are sponsoring, the local agency program, the FDOT grants for the city. There is one other project in the grant cycle that the city is looking to take over and perform on an individual project basis. So moving forward, the county will not be sponsoring the city for LAP projects.
Okay.
So can I just ask, so they're hiring or they've upgraded one of their engineering staff or something to be a LAP certified engineer?
It's my understanding they hired a grants and contracts position, and they're looking to either get LAP certified with FDOT or perform it on an individual project LAP certification basis.
Great, thank you. Good for them. Ms. Manning?
All right. So the next 3 items are permission for a renewal or accept the renewal of 3 housing and urban development grants. The first one is to renew they're different contracts. So the first grant is to renew for $130,848, and this is for rental assistance, and it helps the high need populations and address homelessness. The next one, I'm just going to say the contract 2013. This is requesting an addition to renew additional $130,284. And the final one is contract 2001, and it's requesting an additional renewal of $98,611. The final item 11 is CIP revisions. And there are 3 items in that CIP revision, and staff is, for the first one, staff is requesting an amendment to the Cypress Creek floodplain to allocate $175,000, and those funds are requested from the Hog Creek land acquisition to match they want to use those funds for matching pending grants. So the Hog Creek project is on hold right now, so they would like to utilize $175,000. The second item, they're requesting an amendment to East Fork Creek stormwater treatment area in an amount of $302,000, and they would like to utilize this grant match as well. And the available funds are from the Willoughby Creek project that has been completed, and they would like to use those. The final item is $40,000 amendment to the Hawk Hammock Access Project, and staff is requesting to use unspent impact fees that is remaining from the Hope Sound Scrub,
Okay, so we have
Yeah, sorry.
items 1 through 11 with Commissioner Hurd requesting to have item 3 separated out. So unless there's any further discussion, we need a motion for items 1 through 11 less item 3.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public wish to comment on any of these? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All is opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.
Move to approve. Item 3.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public wish to discuss this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor of motion, say aye. Aye. All is opposed.
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Jennifer, thank you very much. Okay, next up is department item number 3.
Yes, sir. Just for the public, Department Number 2 did not have any items on it, so that's why we've skipped it. On April the 5th of this year, we had a member of the public come forward and discuss about considering an ordinance to allow back what they refer to as backyard chickens. So the board did direct staff to bring back an agenda item. That's what this item is. Martin County currently does allow for chickens in the unincorporated area in any of the identified agricultural districts, which we have a few. There's also a defined gross acreage, and chickens are allowed. Chickens currently are also allowed in the rural estate on 2 acres. So if it's designated RE2A, the allowance has the same language as the agricultural districts, which states raising of backyard animals such as, but not limited to, pigs, goats, sheep, cows, and poultry, provided that such animals are not raised for commercial purposes. So our other residential single-family uses do not allow the backyard chickens. And so I have provided the board in this agenda item, there's about 15 different things that as I was doing the research, I shared Mr. Stokes's earlier comments about he knew more about the pet stores. I've known more about chickens than I really realized. But we also asked the sheriff's office to weigh in. They have a big concern as far as enforcement. And then also our code enforcement, I think we're going to be putting undue hardship on them if this is one more thing that has to be regulated. I think, people who are responsible, that's one thing, but you can't control some people, and they just become irresponsible. They buy these cute little chicks at the feed store. There's a tub of them, and they're just peeping all over the place, and people are so excited to hold them, and they're so cute, and then they bring them home, and then they grow up. The other thing, too, is that chickens stop laying eggs after a certain period of time, a certain age, and then there's an issue as far as what do you do, how do you dispose of those chickens and taking care of them, along with the concerns of keeping, we've heard about rats and snakes and different things that are attracted to the chicken or chicken coops because again, the individuals that own them are not being responsible. So I just brought all this information. The city of Stewart only allows for chickens in their, they have created a specific land development regulation called urban farms. And so they allow them on these urban farm designation, but to my knowledge, there is no property large enough in the city that has obtained that designation. So I gave you various other entities, their ordinances relative to that. There's most of these that I researched require some kind of a permitting. They require you to take some kind of an educational component. You heard them, what was his name that came forward earlier from the farm? David Hafner. You heard him talk about that. He supported that when I had a conversation with him. I spoke with him directly. The health department raised some concerns to the disease
that can be brought by having these chickens. And then there's just various things in here. I think like I said, I had about 15 different things that you would want to consider. Should we be looking at a particular distance to a body of water? We're constantly talking about water quality, and how are these individuals going to ensure that the runoff from their property that possibly could be carrying some chicken leftovers, if you will, would then get into our waterway. And it's individuals being responsible. And I just, from a staff perspective, I hate to see my employees, and I'm sure the sheriff employees already have issues trying to be a intermediary between two neighbors that are having a dispute. And I think that this just provides one more opportunity for them to have that. And I'd rather code enforcement focus on impacts in these neighborhoods. When people move into a residential neighborhood, they're not expecting to have chickens, in my opinion. But anyways, and that's it. So I will open it up to any questions. If you want me to cover any of the information in here, I'm happy to, but I think the agenda item was pretty much speaks for itself.
Commissioner Campy, thank you. Ms. Krista.
Ms. Krista, thank you very much. I feel like we're going to do like a point counterpoint. I appreciate your preparation of the agenda item, but obviously you have made up your mind that you are not personally in favor of this. The presentation of the information was designed in such a way that, as to say, you obviously don't think it's a good idea. I'd like to just offer up some of the suggestions and just some counterpoints. First off, I have no intention or desire to have chickens in my own yard, but when the woman came forward, Ms. D'Angelo, I thought she had made a pretty passionate plea for at least a conversation, which is what we're having. I did read through all of the information, and I appreciate you very much, Ms. Krista, for creating and collecting so much information. St. Lucie County allows these backyard chickens. Indian River County allows backyard chickens. Multitude of other, sort of similar sister counties that we have allow backyard chickens. The speaker that came forward earlier is a friend of mine who was concerned about chickens that are roaming in the streets and people that are awoke in the middle of the evening or 4 o'clock in the morning by roosters, not by hens. Hens are relatively quiet. And I spoke to her during the break and said that if she was having this issue, it's already a code enforcement issue if people are illegally housing or raising chickens in their yard. So it's already a code enforcement or sheriff's office issue, especially if they're roaming free. Without a regulation, without some kind of criteria that would allow it, it's a free-for-all. And if we're going to discuss disputes between neighbors, illegal chickens that are not kept the way that this ordinance is designed is an issue. Ms. Krista did touch upon the requirements that could potentially be necessary if we were to create some language that would allow this to happen in a fair and appropriate manner. The language that was collected and presented is excellent because it talks about the square footage, what a hen house would have to look like, how the chickens would be taken care of, how the excrement would be disposed of and handled. We're not talking about allowing people to have farms worth of chickens or raise chickens to commercially sell eggs or commercially sell chickens or feathers or excrement. I guess there's a market for everything. This is 4 chickens, potentially 5 chickens. You're not going to craft a large enterprise in your yard off of 4 chickens. Most of the municipalities that were referenced in the material said they had 4. We think of Indian River as our sister county. They're doing it there. St. Lucie County is certainly not, it has portions of the county that it's rural, but I would consider it more urbanized or suburbanized than even we are. I've had a lot of, when the issue came up in the city of Stewart, a lot of people in Palm City did approach me. I get that maybe in Jensen Beach or in Stewart, as a municipality, it might not be ideal. It's a much more compacted community. You head out into District 5, where I am, and Palm City. Obviously, if you get west of the Turnpike, the properties are larger. But there is a rural lifestyle. And when I mean lifestyle, I mean sort of a mindset of having these things. And as food prices have gotten more expensive, people start to think about these things. And to address some of the issues, if the chickens age out of egg-laying age, production, how the language is appropriate here on what's the appropriate humane disposal of chickens, or if someone wanted to have a chicken and it became a regulated pet and the family that had it no longer cared that it was, producing eggs, laying eggs, and they wanted to keep it, then they could keep it. We're speaking about 4 chickens. The other thing that I thought was appropriate is that if someone did want to do this, they would have to come forward and attain a permit and go through the process and register. And, Mr. Hafner was here, said he personally liked it and that his organization liked it. Obviously, they're the Farm Bureau. They like these kind of rural lifestyle options. And I thought some of the things that he said about a potential pilot program before, look, most of us, I know Commissioner Hurd, you have some farming in your past, and Commissioner Hetherington grew up in Indiantown. I don't know if Commissioner Jenkins, what, you had chickens? Yeah. Doug and I are from more rural childhoods, suburban childhoods, not rural. I just think, you had chickens? In your backyard?
In our backyard.
Okay, so all of a sudden, I'm seeing a lot of support for chickens in the yard. Well, I'm not done. I'm not done.
I had 5 acres.
That's fine.
So keep going.
I'm representing our constituents. I wasn't raised on a farm. I don't plan on being on a farm. I'm not going to have any chickens. But
You
when
go buy farms on the way to work.
I do, and then I am moving west. But that being said, there's no personal advantage for me to be for this, but I did want to present this fairly and evenly. I am 1 vote of 5. I thought Ms. D'Angelo and the group that she put together, I'm sure she sent the information to everybody, had done a very good job of trying to address the potential concerns. I think most people's knee-jerk initial response and reaction to hearing something about this can, as Ms. Krista did, really find the reasons that it's not a good idea. But I think and appreciate the fact that we're having a conversation. I see her out there with her daughter, paying close attention. This is what we're supposed to do as elected officials. We represent the public. The public has asked us to review this issue. If it doesn't go forward from today, so be it. But I wonder why our sister neighboring counties had figured out a way to do this. I would at the very least, hope that we could create either a pilot program that is set with a specific time frame to see if it would work, or, and I'm not sure, Ms. Woods can chime in, if we have the ability to have it included in certain districts defined by our districts and not necessarily in others, because I think that maybe the interest in this in District 5 might be more apparent than it might be in District 1 or 4 or 2. Commissioner Jenkins is obviously on a manifest destiny to eventually have it be a single district county, District 3, but he's not there yet. I think that maybe if we did it in 3 and 5 as a pilot program to see if it would work, allow some people to come forward and see if a legitimate program utilizing all of the requirements that have been put forth by other counties, I'd be willing to try it in District 5 as a pilot program. If it doesn't work, then we gave the public an opportunity to try it. It didn't work. Thank you.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I was raised on a farm, and we raised all kinds of farm animals successfully, responsibly. I have nieces now who reside on that same farm, and they raise chickens, and they raised cattle, and they raise pigs, and they raise sheep, all very responsibly, show them at the fair in the summer. And so there are appropriate places in which to raise all sorts of farm animals. And then there are those that are not so appropriate. I think that it's apparent that we write rules, regulations, laws for the disobedient to make sure that we have enforcement capabilities. And I didn't know until this morning that there was a chicken problem in Golden Gate, but I believe, I'm sure that there's a problem. If you're coming to us telling us that there's a problem, there's a problem, and it's a very urban, densely developed place, and are chickens appropriate there? Probably not, especially if the people who are raising them are not obedient people. So I think that our regulations right now are appropriate. I think that you do need to have some acreage, and that there do need to be enforcement capabilities for the county. But I think that, in my opinion, that our regulations the existing ones are probably the most important, are the most effective and appropriate for Martin County.
Commissioner Jenkins?
I agree with Commissioner Hurd completely. I grew up, we had a 100-acre thing, not at the house, but out west, and I do remember my sister and I wanting chickens, and, my father grew up on a farm in Indiana and raised chickens and forbid it, because he described it as nasty. So I have no experience in raising chickens, thank God. But I did do a little bit of talking to my constituents in at least the Hope Sound area. Indiantown's a completely different thing, plus they're an incorporated area, so they can do what they want. But I feel that if we did pursue this, like every issue that we come across, most of our constituents aren't intimately involved with our agenda items. Just in talking to 15 different families, they were so against it that we would have this room filled with people completely against the idea of backyard chickens in a residential community. So I don't think this is a good idea. I hate to go against David Hafner. He's a wonderful friend of mine, but Indiantown is different than Hope Sound. It's different than Golden Gate is different from a lot of places. So
David Hafner lives in Palm City now.
That's because Palm City goes to the lake. No,
which district in Palm City? Anyway, so with that said, I'm out.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I would echo some of the sentiments of Commissioner Hurd and Commissioner Jenkins, and I too grew up with chickens and roosters who used to peck me around, chase me around. And, my initial gut reaction was absolutely, this is a bad idea. I did, engage with some people that did support it, and certainly a neighborhood advisory council in my district is not a proponent of chicken in an urban area, so I'm not going to be supporting it. But I thought that David Hafner's offer this morning to workshop, ways that we can do. I'm a major supporter of agriculture, farming, some things that 4-H could do. I mean, there are ways for urban areas to have the experience and the education of raising chickens, by doing it through some of the outlets that we have, like 4-H and FFA. And I really encourage David Hafner and those 4-H groups and the Farm Bureau and the FFA to collaborate and find ways that, if I needed to bring a community education component to my district via FFA or 4-H, I would be certainly willing to support that. and encourage, this, because I agree, even if you live in an urban area, you should have an opportunity to learn about agriculture and farming. And I believe that there are other outlets, and I would encourage David and Amber, and I was saying, Ms. D'Angelo, that she did a very impressive job of researching and putting together an enormous amount of information. And the other thing that concerned me is some of the health-related concerns. I just came back from Colorado, and some of those areas are experiencing a major avian influenza impact. And, it affects commercial raisers, and it affects other small ag and, home lots. So that concerns me. And then the final thought during this morning's conversation on puppy mills and rabbits, and I thought, here we are talking about regulating people on puppies and kittens and rabbits. What will happen when, that cute little box of chicks is no longer wanted and needed, and they just start letting them go? Will the Humane Society begin apparently they already do take chickens. Frank told me at break. But, will they be ramping up to take more chickens, because those little chicks are really cute? And it is very difficult to tell the difference between a hen and a rooster when they're babies too. So for many of those reasons and those of my colleagues, I'm not going to support a chicken ordinance, but what I would support is, maybe 4-H and FFA and Ms. D'Angelo to talk about how we could encourage education, and are there some community resources that we could provide that would assist with that?
I agree with everything Stacy just said. I did, when I was young, actually have chickens. I had 25 Rhode Island Reds, and I had 2 roosters. And the reason you had roosters was that made the hens happier, and they were much more productive when the roosters were around. My roosters used to take them up in the 2 birch trees that we had next door to the hen house, and that was always a very loud event during the night. So they were a lot of fun. We had a 5-acre parcel where I grew up. We had a penned-in area, probably 1,000 square feet, that we had the chickens, and we took care of them and managed them, and they were great. They were a lot of fun. They were like pets. But we never let them outside the pen, and we specifically had them for neighborhood eggs, and that was one of my businesses that I had when I was probably 12, 13 or something like that. But I can't see replicating that in our more urban areas. I think the way the ordinance is designed is for 2 acres or more. Makes an awful lot of sense to have the space to do that. When Sadia brought that up this morning, I never even thought about what Stacy had just shared with us, that when the little chicks or whatever grow up and they're not little cute pets anymore, people let them go and let them run in the neighborhood. That creates a whole nother issue. And I just think where we are is, for me, where we need to be at this point. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. I just want to be clear that, like I said, I like my chicken as McNuggets. And so I'm not interested in that. But what I wanted to do is give a member of the public who came forward, and as we had all, I think, are witnesses of, really presented an issue that was important to her and to a lot of other people that banded with her. She deserves the conversation that she just heard from the colleagues and the back and forth discussion. I wasn't necessarily a huge proponent of it. I got you, Commissioner Smith. I'm getting the wrap-up signal. I just want to be clear that this is how the process is supposed to work. The public comes forward with a request, it's vetted by staff, it's discussed by the commission, and then we give our logical responses to it. So I see Ms. D'Angelo in the lobby. Thank you very much for your effort, and I hope this doesn't discourage you from participating in your local government, and I think we can obviously take no action. The last suggestion I would make, and Commissioner Hetherington sort of touched upon it, people that live in communities want horses, and they know that they can't have the horses on their property, so they have a horse that they either purchase or participate in a rural area. I would make a recommendation that we do condominium coops where people can purchase for their own chickens. You know, there's community gardens. People can't garden in their own space, so they garden somewhere else. If there are neighbors that want to have, if there's residents that want to have chickens, I'm sure there's some entrepreneurial rural farm owner.
We'll look for you to set up that program and administer it.
It's going to be a beautiful. Yeah, no, I don't want to make the motion to deny it, so I just will appreciate the process.
Thank you so much.
Someone else can.
Is there a motion at all on this? Hearing none, we will move on. Thank you for all that, and thank you for offering the opportunity for Ms. D'Angelo to come forward and present that,
She did a very good job.
and we'll move on.
Okay.
Item department number 4, Ms. Krista.
You got to know. It's perfect.
This item, I just felt, we as your staff take the opportunity from time to time to look at the priorities and specifically things that the board has directed us to do. And so in doing that, I just thought it would be good to bring this to the board so that you could see what the status is of those priorities that you set toward last year. And so we've done very well. As we've said over and over, we've got great staff. I'm fortunate to have the staff that I have, and we have all been very diligent in bringing forward those items that would meet your priorities and accomplish what your objectives were. So this is just informational. Unless the board wants to provide us with some additional direction, but I just thought it was a good time to bring it up to you.
Great. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none. We'll move on to the last item. Thank you. Ms.
Thank you.
For that. Department 5, I don't see anybody here for that, but it's consider a resolution urging Congress to enact House Resolution 160 and Senate
Dawn,
Bill
do you want to
46,
take
Restoring
that?
Resilient Reefs Act for 2021, or similar legislation reauthorizing the Coral Reef Conservation Act of 2000. Commissioners, as you well know, this was started with our staff back some years ago. We kind of elevated the awareness of it over the last 4 or 5 years. Our staff has done an amazing job. Our team of legislators and certainly our lobbyists have helped us get this at both the state level as a priority for the state and at the federal level. And we just are reinforcing, I think, the awareness. We'll be going up to D.C. coming here shortly, and there is the expert in the field, Ms. Fitzpatrick. But we're asking for you all to, again, support language in a letter to our delegation to D.C. Supporting the reauthorization. Did I cover enough time for you to get here?
Yes, you did. I didn't realize that I was on deck, but yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where we are on this, but
So we are at the point where we are requesting as the agenda item to consider a new resolution urging Congress to enact.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think you did a great summary on the attached resolution supporting the coral reef, which I know you and Ms. Fitzpatrick have been championing for a long time. And James helped put together this agenda item for continued support on the Coral Reef Initiative.
And honestly, too, it should go without mention, we appointed years ago, 6-7 years ago maybe, John Haddix to be our representative with the Coral Reef Task Force here in Florida. John really helped us move that item and discussion forward, and even brought one of the hearings up here to Martin County 7-8 years ago. And thank you to Kathy's efforts, have continued to push this with a whole host of other folks in the state of Florida that have gotten behind saving the only continental United States coral reef to the state. So with that, if we could get a motion to do this, that would be great.
I'll move staff's recommendation to authorize and sign the resolution.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Welcome, John.
James.
James, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. James Kennedy is your new legislative
John Kennedy, go figure.
Yes.
John.
person. Yeah.
Guy looks familiar.
And he worked with Ms. Fitzpatrick on this to bring it forward to the board for your consideration.
Yes, I'd like to hear from Mr. Kennedy before I make my determination of voting for it.
But I will,
James
I will
Kennedy,
share with you,
legislative.
James, time is of the essence. And so as much as we'd love to have that sharing with Commissioner Campy,
We're ahead. We're ahead of the schedule.
James Kennedy, Legislative Coordinator. Thank you, Commissioners. The Restoring Resilient Reefs Act of 2021 will reauthorize the Coral Reef Conservation Act of 2000. Florida's coral reef stretches approximately 350 miles through 5 counties, including Martin County. Federal funding will be beneficial to the 5 counties for the preservation and restoration to the Florida coral reef. In April of 2022, Monroe County adopted a resolution urging U.S. Congress to pass the Restoring Resilient Reefs Act of 2021. Broward and Palm Beach counties have also shown interest. However, they have not done so at this time. Continued partnership within the 5 Florida counties will be beneficial to enrolling this legislation. Also, just something wanted to state, on an annual basis, about $2.2 billion comes into the state of Florida just from tourism, fishing from the coral reef. And also just something wanted to state, myself and Kathy Fitzpatrick, coastal engineer, will be going up to DC and wanted to offer that opportunity to the 5 commissioners to also come along. That will be June 22nd and June 23rd.
fantastic. And welcome, by the way. Also, I will use every opportunity for those that have championed our effort over all these years. Kristen Jacobs, who was a former legislator, really was a stalwart and inspiration and supporter of all of Martin County's efforts, quite frankly, but on the coral reef portion of this, in many instances, pushed us and pushed the legislature forward to get us to where we are today, at least with the state of Florida and the funding and the support that we have from the state of Florida. Kathy, did you want to add anything?
No, that's good.
Okay,
You get me every time you mention her.
I'm sorry. So, we have a motion, we have a second. All of those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. James, welcome again. Thank you. Okay, we have reached, I believe, the end of our agenda. Commissioner Jenkins, you have anything for the end of the day?
I do not.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I'm all set.
Commissioner Campy?
All set.
Commissioner Hurd?
I'm set.
I'm all set. Ms. Krista?
I was just going to congratulate your clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller, Ms. Carolyn Timmons. Tomorrow she will be sworn in as president of the state's court clerk and comptroller's president. Yeah, she's the president-elect. So I think that that's a great for her, and she'll give us some great representation.
Which in so many other ways is incredibly important to us here in Martin County, and certainly her role and position at that level will be incredibly
Agreed.
supported.
Agreed.
That's it.
Woods, anything? We are adjourned. Thank you all.